So moving on, we've done a little bit of takeoff there so far, and that's what's been getting colored up. I'm going to select my model browser. I'm going to go to my walls. So you can see it there based on little arrows navigating through my walls. I've got walls, all my wall categories are in the basic wall category. And then I've got a number of categories within that category. I've got a render 2 and 5 block wall, which I've already measured. I got a 250 reinforced concrete wall. Now this is where I suppose the skills of the quantities of air comes in. That those walls, even though they're in the same category, some of them are external, some of them are internal, and then some are actually in the substructure because they're this retaining wall around the perimeter of the piling. So maybe utilizing that one and splitting it up and show you how to select different icons, I suppose, at different objects rather than selecting the whole group like we've done before. And in that way, we can actually take off what we're looking for. So let's navigate to what we're going to take off. I'm going to start with the 250 RC walls just to see, yeah, there's no split into different categories there. So they need to be split up, of course, into whether they're internal, external, or substructure. So starting with the retaining wall here, I am going to click on one of them. Now, just before I do, maybe create my dimension just to see what kind of information is in that particular wall. If I click my properties down here, and I can see when I select one of the objects, 19 substructure, 250 RC, reinforced concrete wall, some constraints here. This one is quite useful. That's unconnected height if you hovered over it. That gives you the height of the wall. Then you've got some dimensions, area, volume, length. And I believe there's some more dimensions down here. If we scroll down, we can see that there's a width in there as well. So that's obviously the thickness of the wall. So let's go ahead and maybe measure one of those walls. So I can click the plus up here, select first. I don't have to select, I can actually just type it in. 250 RC, and what I'm looking to measure is the retaining wall. Okay, so even though it's describing this in the model as 250 RC, it's actually a retaining wall. So it's going to be measured a little bit different than the freestanding, let's say, external in situ concrete walls is. So retaining 250 RC is fine. The color, well, I can change that if need be. And then I'm going to start with something quite simple, and that would be the volume. So realistically, I'm looking for the actual volume of this particular wall. And let's say it's going to be in the substructure because it's below ground level or below that first floor level. Or ground floor level, meters cubed, and then I'm going to type in, I'm looking for volume, and I'm going to map to my volume. Okay, so my volume property, I checked that before, that's in there, and I can utilize that, 17.75, or at least that particular one. So click again, additional outputs. Of course, my wall area is important as a calculation. And that wall area, also substructure, will be in meters squared, and I'm looking for the area. Okay, and now once I type area in there, I'll get the map over here and I'll type in area. So there's a BIM object property also, as I said before, volume, area, and the length. And then what else would we be looking for? We'd be looking for our formwork. Now our formwork is just going to be for the retaining wall, going to be our area on one side. So I pretty much have that there anyway. So I don't need to create it again and have the exact same measurement. I could rename that formwork if that's exactly what I want to call it, but I know that the wall area will give me my formwork because the other side is essentially cast up against the piles. So I won't have formwork on that side. Rebar, classification, keep it within the same class. This time tons, and obviously you've done this before. Volume, which is essentially what I've already mapped to. Volume times weight by volume. Okay, now what's my weight by volume will come in there once I type it. I believe I have it open here. Rebar for substructure, rebar for my retaining walls, 350. So there's quite a significant amount of steel per meter cubed. So I'm going to go back in here and type in that 350. Now you can use whatever you want there, 300, 350, 250. It just depends on, I suppose, when it comes to it, what the engineer puts in there in terms of rebar schedule. But let's use a rule of thumb for the moment, 350 kg per meter cubed. Okay, so that's really what I'm looking there. Volume, formwork, rebar, wall area as well, of course. Let's do a couple of checks as well. This will give us the opportunity to maybe check some items here. What if we do a wall area check? And we do that wall area check based on the length times the height, instead of just taking the actual dimension from the object properties. This is just an interesting little exercise to do. You don't have to do it. I need to click structure. In fact, sorry, I need to click substructure. Then I'm going to click meter squared because that's what I'm looking for. And this times length, that's it there, and multiply by height. So these are two new properties to map to, so they should come in over here. So my length, do I have a length measurement? I believe I do. There it is there. You want to see it. For that particular item, it's 21,000 or 21.6 meters. And then the height, if I can remember, was unconnected height, or if you typed in height as well, it would come up. So that's the height of this particular. So obviously length times height should be the same as my area, although that can change, and I'll just show you how it can change. And then I might do a volume check. These are just a few different ways of calculating, I suppose, the different quantities of what I'm looking for, and substructure. And this time I might go area times thickness, or area times width. Why not use the same terminology that's in there? Area times width. And I have the area already mapped, the area, and now I'll have width down here. Let's type that in. And I know that that width is in there, and you'll see it. I might have to sit view more. Down there, 250 millimeters. So I think that's everything I really need to take off. What is different about this is, just want to double check volume, wall area, rebar, wall area check, volume check, and then I'm going to click start takeoff. Now, as I've that one selected, I can click it and in it goes. And then I can work my way around those walls and just add them kind of individually. Now, the reason I'm not doing the kind of, I suppose, thing I did in the past, whereby I drew a big rectangle around, select them all, is because I don't want to select them all. I only want to select the ones that are applicable to the substructure. So that's what I'm doing. And I might have to spin around and work my way around that building to get all those retaining walls. Fortunately, I don't believe there's a quicker way of doing this. You'll notice that there's a big gap there, and that's gap is there because there's a ramp, and the ramp walls kind of, I suppose, are substituted there for the retaining walls. I'll work my way around. There we go. Okay, and I think that's my last one. Oh, yeah, it is my last one because these two here aren't retaining. That side and that side. So what did I get? 20. Now I think with the part-timers I may have selected that. So if you have selected that, it might work right-clicking it. For example, right-click, right-click and deleting that takeoff, that one, because it's not a retaining wall as such. So 20 of those walls, volume of 195.17. You'll notice down here my volume check is actually the same. You'll notice my wall area check is significantly more than my wall area. And maybe some of you realize what the difference could be. Well, it's these gaps here. So if you take the length of that wall times its height, you're measuring through those opes. And that's why there's a difference between the way it's measured from a length to height point of view versus the object properties that omit the openings from a kind of, I suppose, wall area to area object property map. And that's essentially the quantities from our retaining walls. And if I wanted to use that then for maybe these walls here, I would duplicate it. I would change the retaining to maybe external walls. I change the color, and I could pretty much go ahead and measure that. The only thing I might want to do is change wall area to formwork and multiply the area here by 2 so that I get both sides in terms of formwork, because of course in the retaining wall we formwork one side, and whereas the rest of the walls in terms of in situ concrete walls, be it them internal walls, external walls, etc., they're both sides. And the other thing we'll obviously have to do is when it comes to it and we're utilizing these, this is a duplicate, we'll have to change whether it's substructure, structure, etc. So we have to change the coding on it. But once you've done one wall, you can go ahead and measure the internal, external walls for the rest of the items there. So that's it, and that's the end of this particular little bit of a tutorial.